It's interesting. Today, before coming here, I stopped at the American History Museum because somebody had told me that there's a little exhibit called The History of Giving, like the charity history of giving, and that one in the exhibit was one little box that was what people had in their homes in the early 1900s for the Jewish National Fund. And my grandmother had one of those boxes. And we used to make a big deal all the time about giving to the Jewish National Fund. And it was to plant a tree in Israel. And this we would do on holidays, we would do for graduations, we would do for birthdays, for bar mitzvahs, certain important events in our family life. And I always thought of it as such a great thing that we're helping people to plant trees, to live in Israel. It took me a long time to realize what a myth that whole thing was. That one, even the planting of trees, it was destroying the local people's olive groves to put pine trees that are not even indigenous. But more important, it was to erase the Arab villages that were destroyed during the Nakba, which is a word I'd never heard of while I was growing up. And to buy large tracts of land to get people from Europe and from the U.S. to emigrate to Israel. Well, a lot of Jewish people still believe in that myth, still think that it is so important for the Jews to have a homeland, that we have been thrown out of the places that we have lived traditionally, and the Holocaust is something that's in the memory, especially of the older generation of Jewish people. Now, I'm in my 70s, so I'm part of the older generation, but the younger generation doesn't have that kind of attachment to Israel. When I put a quarter into that little box, that was not so much to plant a tree in Israel. It was to plant a seed inside me, that I would be loving Israel and I would be loving the Zionist project. And so that's something that people grew up with, and it's hard to change that. And that's why my hope is with the younger generation who didn't grow up with that kind of heavy, heavy propaganda about what Israel is or isn't, and are more able to see the reality of the situation.
The author I never get his name.
Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Ta-Nehisi Coates. One of the interesting observations that he made when he went to Palestine, Israel, is that he felt that Israelis and Jews are suffering from a similar thing as African Americans, which is this embarrassment over what had happened to them, and an overcompensation of that embarrassment by showing strength, by showing actually we're the ones on top, to remove that subconscious feeling of inferiority in the wave of history. Do you think that's something you've noticed as well?
Well, in a sense, yes, but look at the situation of Jews in Israel compared to the black community in the United States. I mean, they certainly, while they did have a president, and there are members of the black community who have reached all of the pinnacles in the system, the majority of them haven't. And yet Israel is being controlled by the Jews, and I think there is certainly a fear. I mean, let's not downplay what happened in the Holocaust, and let's not downplay the sense that Jews have of we cannot let anything like that happen to us again. But it is, Ta-Nehisi Coates also said that he recognized immediately what he was seeing, because he saw Jews-only roads, Jews-only settlements, Jews-only places to live. And he said it was very clear to me what that was. That was Jim Crow. That was apartheid. And so to create this system that is so oppressive, and to think that it's okay to live in that system. And I know, I've been to Israel many times. I was sent when I was 15 years old by my parents to go live in a kibbutz. And I went back many times. You live in a place like Tel Aviv, you can live without any idea of what is happening in the West Bank, about what is happening in Gaza. You can live a pretty cool life. And that's why, of course, October 7th was such a shock to so many people, because they don't understand, where it came from. They didn't pay attention to the oppression that people were living under, that Palestinians were living under on a regular basis. So I think on a certain level, that's why people in the Black community in the United States really can relate very well to the Palestinian cause and see it as very much related to their own situation.